So hi, I'm Colleen Peterson. I'm a town planner and managing director at Ratio Consultants, and I'm really passionate about tackling climate change for the really selfish reasons that I have small children and I want them to live in a world that has all the possibilities and future that the world that I grew up in has. I'd love the opportunity to come to the Green Cities Conference and really speak from the heart about why we need to reform the planning system, because there's no doubt if we're going to challenge the status quo, if we're going to make the changes in our built form environment necessary to reduce carbon dependency, to reduce building size and to get us living more sustainably, then we've got to radically shake up where we're at. Well, I think if we're going to be serious about tackling climate change, we have to really tackle head on the way in which our cities are developing. We know that cities and where we live and how we live are a really important factor in climate change and the amount of carbon that we're producing. And so if we're going to really tackle the needs of the Paris Agreement, then we have to change the way that our cities develop. Well, if we're going to achieve increases in housing density, there really needs to be a multi-pronged approach, and central to that's going to be to set minimum housing targets for density and probably building height in and around activity centres and public transport, but also about intentionally limiting car parking and reducing its availability so that we encourage people through lack of other options to walk, cycle and use public transport. Look, if we're going to create the sorts of transitions that we need in the time frame we have, remembering that 3 years is nothing in the overall scheme of things, we need to really radically transform the planning system, and central to that is going to be the idea of removing local government from day-to-day decision making with planning applications, but also, and look, as a planner I feel like this is a dirty thing to say, but we probably do need to seriously consider removing third-party appeal rights from the process, because there's no doubt that community activism, NIMBYism against increased height and density, against changes in our city, are one of the key reasons that we're still a car-dependent society. Look, there's just so many radical things that we could do to bring about the sorts of transformations necessary to reduce our carbon footprint. Providing significant tax breaks to companies to relocate to regional centres, to provide jobs and opportunities outside the metropolitan areas, but also backing that up with fast rail to ensure that we have connectivity between major centres would be a key advantage. There's the opportunity to provide meaningful incentives for developers as a consequence of the increased development opportunities that come around having minimum housing targets, to make contributions through either additional taxes or development levies to enable that money to be funneled into infrastructure that will support those established areas. There's also the idea of providing incentives for developers to go beyond the minimum benefits or the minimum development requirements to provide broader community benefit. With the uplift in development potential, there's the opportunity to enable developers to contribute more constructively to social housing, investment in public infrastructure. And of course, there's classic areas such as the use of low embodied energy materials, green roofs, solar power.